Well, I almost forgot a very important step, sorry, but see, I make mistakes too. We have to cut out in the front of the foregrip to allow for our barrel. So with a pencil, you just want to make a little rough guide right along. Here, you want to open this up so it's pretty much a free floating foregrip, but pretty much you can see just the rough design of where this is going to be opened. We're just bringing this hole out almost to the edge all around it, so there will be plenty of space for our barrel. Now, I lost my carbide cutter for my Dremel right before deciding to do this video. It's somewhere under the workbench and I don't want to look for it. I'm lazy right now. So you want to take your Dremel with your preferred bit that you can find and open up this space. So instead of this tiny little one right here, you end up with. So when you're all done with your Dremel, this is what it's going to look like. Nice and open on the front, plenty of room for if you're using a really fat obscure barrel, or if you're using just a tiny little Latco Assault. Either way, it still looks nice coming out the front of it. Now, we have this opened up. We'll clean it up with a little bit of sandpaper in a little bit, but right now we're still doing the rough modding. So we're going to take our stock foregrip now that we've shaved down, take the sides and the bottom rails off of, and insert it in. And that's pretty much what we're going to end up with. We want the top rails to be just a little tiny bit higher than this part right here. This detail on the e-Vike foregrip. And so we're going to have it right there. We're going to fill this part up with epoxy, but because of these two vent holes, we are going to take some tape and actually put tape over these two vent holes. Let's do 3 just to be careful. And this will prevent the epoxy from oozing out underneath the foregrip while the epoxy is curing. And the reason we went with the 3 is because this foregrip stops right here, which is the length of 2 of them. So you don't get any extra epoxy spilling out further down the vent holes. Just cover up the next one. We're going to go over all that with Bondo when we're done. So now we're going to fill it up with epoxy. Alright folks, we're going to take our 2-part epoxy. I have some cardboard right here, that's alright. That's just what we're going to use. I'm going to use, this is a 0.25 milliliter tube. The stock sizes you normally get at little warehouse stores and hardware stores. And we're going to use the entire thing. Tongue depressor, mix it all up. This DevCom plastic welder starts to set up very quickly, which is one of the reasons I like it. And so that's good enough. And we're going to take it and apply it liberally right into the bottom of the foregrip. We're going to place it on the bottom and up onto the sides just to the end of this part. We aren't going to come back any further on this side because that's bad, just trust me. So we're going to have it right there. On this side, it's just going to end right here and forward. That's all we want to fill. Alright, so we have our foregrip filled up with the epoxy. We don't want it to pile up too much in the middle because we have to slide the foregrip with a barrel into there, and we don't want it to get glued onto the phenom and then we can never get it off. So we want to have a nice little gap there. The epoxy is primarily just for the bottom and touching up against the side of the foregrip we're going to insert in. Then I got the phenom, and that's probably one of the guys from the forums calling right now. And we want to take our phenom with a long barrel on it. We already have the stock foregrip on the phenom right now. and insert it right into the Euro Sniper foregrip. There's the seam running down the top of your stock foregrip and from the two clamshell halves. This airsoft one has a seam running down it as well. You have to hold on to this for about 10 minutes while this cures, and you just want to sight down the top rail to make sure that the two lines are in fact lining up, because you don't want your foregrip to set crooked, which would suck. And then from the side, you just watch from the side to eyeball it and make sure that it looks like it's straight while it's set. Okay, the epoxy has set. It's now nice, strong, sturdy, very durable, rugged enough to play in any snare game, drop it on rocks, fall on it at a sprint, whatever. These composite legs on this e-vike foregrip are very strong. They lock by themselves, and the only way to bring them back up is to depress this small little button right here, and they lock back into position. But all of the modding is finished. Now all that we need to do is to clean up the foregrip. And by cleaning up, I mean that on this back side you could see where there's the gaps where we've done the cuts. We're just going to fill this area with epoxy and Bondo in a little bit, but right now we have to shave down just on the sides a tiny little bit right here, just up to the front, and on the back side also. The reason for that is that when you put the foregrip onto your marker, and let's say you got one of the carrying handles, sorry this one's still being modded for somebody, that you put onto the top rail, it actually butts up right against that and makes it difficult for it to get in. So we're just going to shave this part down just a tiny little bit so that it'll make it easier for it to lock into place. So with your pencil, I'm just going to make a line and just bring it down like 1/8 of an inch. That's it, just 1/8. And this is just a guideline. And the same on the back side. Just like 1/8 of an inch. You don't need to do anything to the front. The front is fine. It's just the sides, we're going to shave those down just a tiny little bit with our Dremel. And there you go. Now this part is just a tiny little bit. You could see right there it's notched just down a little bit to allow for easier clearance for the top rail. So it makes it much easier. And then you could just clean up the edges with a razor and some sandpaper.